Thanks for tuning in to CBSN Pittsburgh. I'm Rich Walsh. It's time to look at the 2020 Steelers schedule. Now I'll bring in the fans, Andrew Fillipponi, to help me break it all down. Pony, 4 primetime games. How you doing? 4 primetime games with the Steelers this year, starting with the first game of the season, Monday night at the Giants. What do you think of the schedule?
Well, the first game catches your eye right away for a couple of reasons, Richie. Number one, they're going into New Jersey, which right now, given the coronavirus pandemic, seems like a tough place to play a game. So that catches my eye, that they're going into a very difficult situation, potentially, given everything that's going on in the world. And then the other thing, Richie, is that it's now 6 straight years for the Steelers opening on the road. And that's never happened before. This will be the first time that they've had such a long run of games away from Heinz Field to open their season. And look, the Giants aren't a great team, but they have Saquon Barkley. So you're going to get a major test as far as the run game goes, the Penn State product, the current day Saquon Barkley, the current day Barry Sanders, if you will, right off the bat. So it'll be a big test for the Steelers' run defense in week 1.
Well, we heard a lot about maybe the division games being at the start of the season or the division games being at the end of the season, and that's not the case. The first division game is week 6 against the Browns, and they end the season with the Browns. More of the division games are towards the end of the schedule, but it doesn't look like that they really, took that or put that into this when they made the schedule here.
Yeah. It looks like a traditional NFL schedule to me, Richie. There's nothing that jumps out to you and makes you feel like they structured it because of what's going on in the real world right now. This is what the NFL has done with their schedules for years. There might be 4 or 5 divisional matchups in week 1. There's a couple of NFC versus AFC games, and the Steelers are one of those. So it makes you wonder what they would do if the season got delayed. My guess is they wouldn't cancel games, Richie. They would just push them back to the end of the year.
All right, so when I look at it, we mentioned the 4 primetime games. Now they have 11 1 o'clock games this year. Usually you see more primetime games for the Steelers, and you also see more 4 o'clock games for the Steelers. Is that just because they haven't been in the playoffs the last 2 years, you think?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with their opponents this year, too. There's no Patriots. The Chiefs aren't on the schedule. The NFC East has some, traditional powers. The Cowboys are a huge draw, just like the Steelers. That's a 4:25 game. You know that. There's only one Sunday night football game, which we're used to seeing Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth quite a bit. There's the Thanksgiving night game and the one Sunday night football game. 2 Monday night football games, so we get a double dose of Booger McFarland, Richie. I can't wait for that. That's going to really get me jazzed up for these games.
And you look at these primetime games, it's not, other than the Giants, who are a big name, the Cowboys are a 4:25 game, but you have the Bills, one of your primetime games, the Bengals, one of your primetime games. I'm guessing it's Joe Burrow. It's not the primetime matchups like we would see before. The Thursday night game on Thanksgiving is against the Ravens, and I could have guessed that the Ravens and the Steelers would be on primetime, but the Bengals and the Bills, I don't know.
Well, and I got to go and look at the Ravens schedule, Richie, but that'll be a big advantage for the Steelers. A home game, Thursday night football, a short week for the Ravens to prepare for the Steelers and come on the road. If you look at the history of Thursday night football, home teams have a big advantage. And I know we don't know how the fan situation is going to go, but still, it's a short week on your turf, which I think would be beneficial for the Steelers in that head-to-head matchup. And to your point on the primetime games, I'm a little bit surprised with the Myles Garrett drama that the NFL did not put a Steelers-Browns game in primetime. The Steelers-Browns matchup in Pittsburgh's at 1 o'clock, and I thought that would be either a 4:25 game or a primetime game because, look, there's more interest in the Browns now because of the personalities there with Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., and Myles Garrett making his first trip back to Pittsburgh since the incident last year.
Yeah, the Browns, the Steelers-Eagles, the Steelers-Titans, those would seem like all primetime games. And maybe that Browns game does get flexed because the Steelers only have 4 primetime games, they have 2 more chances to get flexed. One of them could get flexed out, and that game being at the end of the year potentially could be it, especially if it's for a postseason berth or something like that. So I could see that Browns game potentially getting flexed out. But you brought up the fans. And I was listening to the Steelers show today when they were making the announcement, and Art Rooney was on there, and he said the NFL is going to try to do everything it can to still have a good fan experience. They want fans to come, and they're hoping that fans will be there. Is that just wishful thinking right now?
Well, I think in certain places it has to be. Yeah, I think what we're learning with this, and look, we're neither one of us are medical experts or pandemic researchers, but I think it's logical. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation, Richie. Pittsburgh is different than New York City. New York City is different from Los Angeles. Los Angeles is different than Kansas City. So I wonder how the NFL is going to deal with that. If fans in, let's say, Tampa with Tom Brady, if fans are allowed to attend games in Tampa, but they're not allowed to attend games in Philadelphia, does that mean that the Buccaneers games would have fans and the Eagles games wouldn't? That, to me, would create a competitive imbalance this year. And one of the things we've seen from the NFL that is different from, say, college football, from the NCAA, is that it looks like the NFL, they're doing it with their facilities. If you're not allowed to open in one place, the whole league isn't allowed to open. So I wonder if 10 teams are allowed to have fans but 22 aren't, I could see them saying no fans in all 32 stadiums, just to make it fair.
Yeah, I would definitely think that. I mean, they said their facilities aren't going to open until all states are clean and clear and safe. So I would imagine they would do the same with that. So when you look at this schedule, you talked about it being the, second easiest in the NFL behind the Ravens. What do you think? Give me a prediction. I know it's early on. The schedule was just announced.
Well, one of the first things I go to is that Week 11 matchup at Jacksonville's got a classic Tomlin game written all over it, doesn't it, Richie? They sleepwalk right in there at 1 o'clock. Jacksonville's 2-9, 2-8.
Especially with the Ravens. Especially with the Ravens coming up on that short week. That's a look-ahead game all the way.
100%. But other than that, I don't really see a super difficult chunk of schedule. 3 out of their last 4 games are on the road, but they don't really scare me. At Cincinnati doesn't seem like a scary game on a Monday night. I don't think the Bills are as good as advertised. Some think they're the best team in the AFC East. I don't see it that way. I think they should win 10 games. And if I had to predict a record right now, I would say 10-6. I think I would be more likely to say 11-5 than 9-7, Richie. Because I think they'll win. The schedule, there's only really at Baltimore is the only game I look at right now and say that's going to be a loss. Everything else I think is absolutely a potential win. At Dallas doesn't scare me that much. I don't think Tennessee is going to repeat what they did last year. You don't see Patrick Mahomes. You don't see Tom Brady. You don't see Drew Brees. You don't see Russell Wilson. So I believe it's a very favorable schedule for the Steelers. Anything less than 10 games, I would consider a disappointment.
Yeah, it's a quarterback-driven league, and they're not playing the best quarterbacks. I like your prediction. I'm also going double-digit wins, 10-6, just like you. And I would favor 11-5 over 9-7. Hey, I appreciate your time, Pony. I'll see you tonight on the Sports Call.
All right, Rich. Sounds good, brother. See ya.
See ya.